So here we have problem number 4, and we're dealing with the string where we have to find, not find, but count each character in the given string and put the number of characters next to the character itself and return the output of newly created string. And for example, we have this input string where AA, B, 3 C's and 3 A's, and output should be A2, B1, C3, A3. And at the end we also need to compare the length of the input string and the output string, and return at the end of the function the string which length will be smallest. So here in this case the output string length is smaller, that's why we're returning this one. So in second example we have these strings A, B, C, and the output modified string should be A1, B1, C1, but at the end we will return ABC because the length of the input string is smaller than the length of the modified string. How we're gonna implement our function? So we will always start from the first element, and we will check if it will be equal to next one. If it's equal, we will keep moving to the next one, and so on. And while we will be comparing elements to each other, when they will be equal, we'll just use a counter and increment it each time when there's equations is right. But when we will reach the end, so for example, for a given, we see that A is equal to the next A, so our counter will be incremented by 1. Then we're changing our A and see that it's equal to B. In that case, we will append our A to new string, and also we append our counter value. In that case it will be 2, like A, then 2. Then we will take B and we will check it with the next one. Since it's not equal, we will just append B to our output string, and we will put the counter value which will be 1. The initial value of a counter will be always 1. So next we will compare our C with the next character, and once it will be equal, we'll just increment our counter. We'll take this C to here and we will compare it with the next C and see that they are equal. We'll again increment our counter, so here the counter will be 2, here will be 3, and once it will be reached, we will see that it's not equal to A. We'll just append our C to our string, and we will append our counter value. After we'll see that the counter is not, C is not equal to A, we'll reassign our counter value to 1, and after that we will just check if the next element after A is equal to itself, and since it's A, we will just again increment our counter by 1. So in this case it will be 2, and we will take the last A and we will just compare the next element, which is also A, and we again increment our counter value by 1, and it will make 3, and at the end when there will be no characters in the string, we will just append what we have. So in this case it will be the A, and the counter value is 3, and at the end we will just compare our output modified string with the input, and return the string whose length is smaller than the other. So in our case this one is smaller. So our function will look like as following. So we'll be returning string. I will call it as a counter characters. So input will be a string. So I will declare n value, which will be the length of input string, and also I will declare the counter, and the initial value of a counter will be 0. Since here in this function I'm gonna use a while loop, and that's why the value of I will be defined before my while loop. It will be equal to 0, and I will run my while loop until I will be less than the length minus 1. So I will show you what I mean. So since I'm gonna use another while loop just to compare my initial character with the next character. So here I will define j value, which will be next element, and I will just first initial value will be always I plus 1, and here I'm gonna use another while loop, and here I'm gonna say that my while loop should run while my initial element will be equal to the next element at the index j. So index j also will be incremented each time when the elements will be equal to each other. So here I will increment my counter by 1 always when it's equal, or when the elements are equal to each other. I mean when the characters equal, and also I will increment j each time. Once equation will not the elements will not be equal to each other, I will just append it to the string. Since here I will need also define a string builder. I will use a string builder because string itself is immutable. So here at the end I will append the initial character from the string, like si, and after that I will append the counter value, so here I will append counter value, I was checking if I can append the integer into string builder, and in C# it says it's okay to append the integer. So after that I will just reassign the counter value, and it will say that my counter value will be equal to 1, and I will reassign my I to j plus 1 because I will need to skip characters that I will already considered in this while loop, so I need to jump through it. And after that, since we can't use here in our approach the dictionary, because here our A could be at the beginning and at the end of a string, and we need to count them separately. That's why you can use a string. And here I'm just using a while loop just to see if next elements are equal to each other or not. So after that, I will convert my string builder to string. We will call it string output. And here we will compare two strings output length. If it's less the length of the input, which is n, which I already defined here, I will just return output if it's smaller than the input string. If it's not, I will just return the string itself, the input string, which is s. So time complexity, since here I'm using the while loop, but I'm using the two while loops, and I will say that the time complexity will be n multiplied by n minus 1 divided by 2, which will make it O of n squared. The space is, here we're defining a bunch of data types and one string builder. So I will say that we didn't use any additional data structure. It will be order of O1